Adams. This is Scott Adams, Dilbert author, with I think, a very reasonable and good suggestion. I don't know why we didn't come up with this before. The Department of Imaginary Concerns. Let's watch.
Now that we know that the big problem was the imaginary concern of what could have happened but didn't happen, I've suggested that Trump should create a Department of Imaginary Concerns, and it would be only to handle Democrat complaints. And the new department could have imaginary policies to combat the imaginary concerns. So you would place things like climate change in there. Climate change, at least the crisis part of the climate change. You put the Russia collusion thing in there. You put the Houthis could have found out by hacking Signal in there. You put Trump might steal your democracy in the imaginary concerns department. That Musk might steal our social security numbers. That you put that right in the Department of Imaginary Concerns, and that there might be a constitutional crisis. Yep, that's the Department of Imaginary Concerns. Now, I'm not completely serious about this, but just think how funny it would be if every time one of these hoaxes comes up and Trump is asked about it, he says, "Oh, I've delegated that to the Department of Imaginary Concerns." But are you trying to steal our democracy? That's a perfectly good question. So I've delegated that to the Department of Imaginary Concerns. Did you agree with Putin to have sex with him if he stops the fighting? Well, no, but I'm gonna assign that to the Department of Imaginary Concerns, and we'll come up with an imaginary policy to make sure it doesn't happen again.
I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant. It's pretty much all of the Democrats' concerns. I mean, just go through the list of, what their concerns are for the last decade. None of them exist. I mean, you just went through a few of them, but I mean, really, list them out, right? Russia collusion with Donald Trump, totally imaginary, never existed. Let's go with COVID-19. COVID-19 and the pandemic, we're all going to die. Well, it's kind of imaginary, actually. Actually, the threat was entirely in your minds. And everything you did to deal with the imaginary threat created real problems. That's the other twist of the issue of the imaginary concerns, is their actual solutions to these concerns create actual concerns, right? The imaginary concern of Russia collusion creates the real concern that the deep state is spying on presidential candidates to rig elections, totally undermining and subverting our entire democracy and weaponizing the surveillance that we have for defense of the nation. So it's kind of complicated. The concerns start off imaginary, and then whatever they do to confront those imaginary concerns actually become real, tangible problems.